Success is neither magical nor mysterious. Success is the natural consequence of constantly applying the basic fundamentals. And that's a quote by Jim Rohn, which I have a lot of friends who get a lot of good stuff from Jim Rohn. So I suggest you check him out. Welcome again to my show. I'm still Lucy, and this is still the Profitable Photographer. And I want to thank you in advance for subscribing both the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcast, because that helps everybody. Helps me be motivated, helps my guests be seen more, and it helps you. So, anywho, just want to also let you know that lucydumascoaching.com is where you can find all kinds of things about my programs. So I'm super jazzed to have a wonderful conversation, I'm assuming, and I bet I'm right, with Amy Posner. Now, she's not a photographer, so it's fun to have somebody that can support my listeners in ways that might be a little different than my normal profitable photographer guests. So let me tell you about her. She is a seasoned online entrepreneur and business coach. She helps digital creative freelancers like us build breakthrough businesses. In her over 30-year career, she has launched 6 successful businesses, 5 which are still operating well today, and has mentored thousands of freelancers to be successful by teaching them the skills they need to attract the right clients. She has a complete Breakthrough Freelancer course that right now is one of the opportunities to really learn from her. Let's see. Oh, and she's the co-host of the Business Badassery podcast, which will be launching its new season soon, but there's 100+ episodes that you can check out. So welcome, Amy. Thank you so much for reaching out to be on the show.
Thanks for letting me be here. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
Same. We discussed before we recorded how we're kind of coming from a similar generation. We've both been around a while and we know some stuff, and we love to share that with people that haven't been around so long or that have. All right. So let's see. What's my first question? Oh, so how did you become so smart about this? Just in a little quick bio of you.
Well, it's interesting. I grew up in a family business, and I learned so much around the dinner table and going to work with my parents, by osmosis, things I didn't know I was learning about. And a lot of it was about how to take care of people and how to, like, I'm air quoting here, how to do business and how to for a really great experience. And so some of that just comes naturally because I learned it so early. And the funny thing is I never wanted to be the business person, though. My family was in business and I wanted to be the creative one. And so I actually, you'll laugh. I pursued film and photography
Oh,
in college and got sort of, I don't know, I guess pushed by the family to choose a profession. And so I was going to become a lawyer. And about a week before law school was going to start, I realized it wasn't the right thing for me, for a whole variety of reasons. And that just started me, on a trajectory of traveling, and I got a job, and that job led to a business partnership, which led me to realize how creative and interesting business actually was.
hmm.
And I never looked back. And that's the long story, very short, but that's sort of how that all came to be.
So I relate to the last thing that you said about business being creative. I always thought I wasn't interested in business, but I did it because in order to not have to go get a real job, but to stay as a photographer, I needed to do that. And also always thought, I really haven't had enough training. But as I've started coaching was maybe 10 plus years ago, I realized I was very interested. I find it creative. I find it personally enriching. And so I've stepped into my own joy of talking about and supporting others and creating my own great business. So I love how we kind of have that in common. Okay, I've got some good little topics here. One was about an entrepreneurial secret. And the secret, as I see this from your notes, is that a six-figure business has nothing to do with our skills. So talk to me about that. What is that secret, and how can we use that to become awesome in our business?
Well, let me tell you what that is, but let me just backtrack for a sec and just say that I don't think six figures is the holy grail. And I just have
Right.
to say that because I think it gets talked about so much. And what I really think matters is what you want, right? What's important to you, and what's important to you in a particular season of life and business that you're in, because it changes, right? Sometimes it's about making as much money as you can for some reason. And sometimes it's about having as much time as you can because you have something else to deal with or something else you want to do in your life. So, but making a good living, whatever that means to you, and that could be multiple six figures and it could be half of that, is largely dependent on having business skills that are commensurate with your craft skills. Because a lot of us start a business because we're good at something, right? I ran a copywriting business for 10 years. I loved being a copywriter. I loved writing. I loved all the things that were involved. Just like your audience, loves photography. And there's people thinking, well, geez, how do I make a living at this? Like, could I do this all the time? And you can, but what you quickly find out is you can be the best photographer in the world, but if you don't have clients, or if you don't have clients that pay you well, you can't make a good living at it. And so my message is that the craft skills, or the business skills, I guess I should say, need to be commensurate with the craft skills, or you at least need to be willing to work on them so that they're developed, and that what you do as a business person isn't an afterthought, but
Totally
it's
agree.
actually part of
And,
what you do and strive for.
right. And in my industry, there are many people who are incredibly successful where their photography skills are not really a match. They're good, they're sellable, they're doing great work, but they aren't like the most award-winning photographer in the world, but they're great at customer relation, finding clients, selling, all the things in business. So we can even I'm looking for the right word. We we can exceed our photography skills with our business skills if we want to and have the success we want. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. And I think it's important because, the thing you don't want to have happen is you don't want to start hating, disliking, resenting your craft.
Mm,
And if you're doing it and it's not making you the money you need, or things aren't working right, you can start to feel like, yeah, I don't know, do I really like doing this? And you may fundamentally love doing it, but you may not love it in that context. And I think that's just a real shame, because you do this because you love it, and you want to do more of it. And so we want to empower you to be able to do that, and do that
mhm.
in a way that's sustainable for you, and not where you're always struggling and wondering, why you made this decision in the first place.
I totally agree with that. Um, and I was thinking about a coaching client that I had where we went through the 6-month program and he learned a good basic foundation and he realized he loved his other job and he didn't want to take on a second job. He wanted to keep doing his photography as a passion. But what I love is that he learned what it would take and then was at choice. Okay, so what is the entrepreneurial secret then?
Ah, right. Yeah. I didn't answer the question. How sneaky. So the secret is just that. It is developing your business skills, is not letting that be an afterthought. And in a way, the secret is to make your clients important and to make them your partners, because I think, what happens if you don't have these refined business skills and you don't have a way that you treat people and you don't have processes, the client can feel disrespected, and
Hmm.
or they can feel like or perceive that you're a flake. And there's plenty of freelancers who are flakes, and people who don't show, people who don't do what they say they're going to do. And so just by doing some of those things and knowing how to reassure the client and make them feel well taken care of, not only, can you have a more sustainable business, but you can command better fees because you're delivering a better experience that people have more confidence in. It's no longer like, ooh, it's a crapshoot. I hire you, maybe it'll work. It's like, no, you can reassure me with how this works. And then it's like, oh, I know that I'm in good hands even before I start working with you.
Do you have examples or an example of the first scenario where maybe a great photographer, but but the client doesn't trust you, and then the opposite? Do you have anything you can share?
I do. I do. And I call it, there's a distinction, and I call it the difference between being an order taker and an expert. And so the order taker is, I call you up and I say, hey, I need, I don't know, I need a wedding photographer. And you say, great, that'll cost you X and I'm available these dates.
Hmm.
Um, the other, and wedding may not be the best example, but we'll stay there for a
That's a good
sec.
example.
The other scenario might be, I call and say, hey, I need wedding photographs. And instead of you saying, well, it costs X and these are the dates, you say, great, like who's getting married? Where? Tell me about it. What size is it? Who's gonna, what kind of things do you envision? Like I start becoming your partner in knowing what you want. And strikes a very different feeling in your client than someone who says, yeah, cost X dollars, here it is, here's the thing. It's like, great, you can sell me that, but I don't feel like you necessarily have any interest in me, or I don't know, maybe you're just not that experienced. Maybe you don't know how to ask those questions.
Hmm.
Ooh, and then it can lead down a whole train of experiences that we've all had in the past where maybe you didn't feel quite confident and it didn't quite work out. And so, you're kind of at a loss as at the client. You don't, you may not know that, but you may know that you don't have a great feeling,
Right,
if
right.
that makes sense. So
Yeah,
that's the first distinction, is the order taker and the expert.
got it. I teach the core. I was telling you that sales is my superpower, and I ran across the term trusted advisor, and I think you used the word, oh, you used the word expert, which I consider in that same range, that you won't trust somebody if you just say, unless you're really looking for Q&D, quick and dirty, sure, what's the price? You're cheap. Okay, you're on. But in that relationship you're talking about and building the six-figure or whatever point you want to achieve, to build that is to build a relationship first. That's what I'm hearing from you, that I think we have that in common. Am I on track?
Yeah, and I think, yeah, you are. And I think the quick and dirty thing gets old, right? For the photographer, because it's like you can do so many of those, but how many can you do? And you're not like, are you really satisfied and happy, inside of what you're delivering there? And so
Mm-hmm.
I think, this idea, and I love the trusted advisor. That's actually a way better term than expert, because expert, it opens like all kinds of doors. What exactly is an expert? But the trusted advisor, it's exactly that. It's this person that you feel can sort of shepherd you or lead you, or it's going to hold your hand. And they've done this before. They have a way that they do it. They have a way they take care of you, and you have that feeling like you're in good trusted hands. And that's what you want, especially when you're coming to somebody for a service that I mean, we all understand what a photograph is. Most of us don't know what goes into making a good photograph or a good experience. And so if you don't tell me that as the expert, then, then I don't know. And let's be fair. Sometimes people are looking for quick and dirty. Look, I got X budget, I'm looking for somebody who can do this for X budget. Those are not ideal clients though, right? That's not who you want to be working with all the time. You want to work with people who, appreciate everything that you're bringing to the table and everything you can offer.
Right. And that being said, there are people in this industry who their business model is to not have deep engagement, have it simple, maybe volume, maybe hire other photographers. Like I had friends that worked as they were building their own business, worked for a company that is great at marketing and is very economical and would shoot weddings and get like $300 in their pocket. And, that's a business model that's perfectly viable for the person that had like 40 bookings a week for weddings and hired other people. So I think what you're talking about that I'm always on board with is the more of the luxury personal photography services that so many of us do aspire to in our businesses, is to get to be the photographer as well as the business owner. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think what you're delivering is a more bespoke experience, right? It's a custom experience, right? It's not just, I would imagine in that $300 and I'm booking lots of people, it's like, okay, here's what we do, here's how it works, here's what we come in. It's not the, well, what do you want? And how do you envision it? And like, what's possible inside of this scope? Because it could be a whole lot of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's really up to you. And I think what happens, I mean, in this first idea, the what you call the Q&D idea, it's like you may get ongoing business or referrals, but they're all going to be those same kinds of people.
Mm-hmm.
Where over here with this more bespoke experience, you'll get referrals for the experience you deliver, and there'll be people of I know they're not higher caliber as people. I don't mean that, but they're they're a higher caliber client. Let's say that.
Right.
And that's what allows you, I think, to do your best and most creative and most interesting work. It's not
Yeah.
just a formulaic, let's get in, let's get out, let's get paid. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's an fine business model, but I don't think it's necessarily sustainable over time.
So why do you think some people, photographers especially, might avoid spending that kind of time and try to run their businesses? First of all, we've got what we call the shoot and burn, or I like to say shoot and share, where for X dollars, they do the photography and they just send them the files, the end, happily ever after. Um, so I wonder if you have some thoughts about why someone might be hesitant to step into a higher level of service. And I don't know if I'm
I
leading
think,
this, or I just want to hear what you have to say that's different about my thoughts. So, yeah.
yeah, I think often the photographer just doesn't know. I mean, they just really literally don't realize that like they don't realize that I think, and this is kind of, it may sound kind of funny or ironic. It's like the better clients want to be taken care of in that way. They want to know what's on offer. They want to know what's possible. They want to know, they want someone to say to them, hey, listen, I've done this kind of thing before. Here's how we've done it. Here's what the process will look like. Here's what I'll want to know a month before. Here's what I'll want to know a week before. Here's what I want to know about who's attending and what kind of groupings you want and all the things that might be possible inside of that experience that now your client or potential client may not realize all those things are possible either. But for the people who want, for whom this is really important, that this be an important aspect of this whole experience, they want to know what's on offer. And then you're telling them how this works. That's the process piece of this.
Mm-hmm.
That's really reassuring for a client. Okay, great, we're going to do it on this date. I'll see you then. It's like, I don't know what to expect or what's going to happen when I say, hey, listen, here's how it works. Here's what I'll need to know from you. Here's why. Here's how I can help create this amazing experience for you inside of this. Even like, here's why people get nervous and here's how I can help with, like all of the pieces that then put somebody's mind at ease. Like, oh, this is a pro.
Mm-hmm.
they're going to take care of everything, rather than, oh, this is somebody who may or may not show up and they may or may not be great. And you don't know what you're getting exactly. So, but I think from the photographer side, they don't know that. They don't, it's a funny thing. I think people don't realize that the client would like to be the partner and not the sort of person, not the checkbook, for lack of a better thing to call it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I don't want to be just seen as somebody, who's going to pay you. I want to be taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, not everyone does, but if you want to offer that kind of service, then you can find those people for whom that's important,
Mm-hmm.
and you can elevate the whole experience for them, and ideally for you, so that you're able to do more what you want to do creatively. Um, and you can make the money that you need to make to, live well,
Mm-hmm.
while doing that. And I think that's the choice. And I think that's one of the reasons I do what I do, is because I feel like people don't know that. And like, how would you, right? You hang up your shingle because you love being a photographer, you love the craft, you love the creativity, but there's no one's put that together for you. Like, oh, well, if you want to make money at this, there's another set of skills you need to learn. And it's a very clear and distinct set of skills that is very separate from what you do as a creative.
I love that. So what popped in my mind is the why could be like why someone continues their business in a certain way is they don't even know what they don't know. And they're hanging out with other people that handle everything via text and email and just have a set price, deliver. And there's now an overwhelming amount of people that's their business model right now. And they're not aware of all the resources like you to help them. Like, I think if 10 of my listeners came to you and said, Amy, help me, you'd find that 8 of them don't even know what it takes to have a business. And they've based their model on looking at other people's websites and different things. And they haven't basically gone to business school in any way. So yeah, we
Yeah.
don't know what we don't know.
And the problem with looking at other people's stuff, I mean, besides the comparisonitis and all the,
Mhm.
you know, fear and doubt that can instill in you, is we don't know what's behind it, right? You don't know,
Right.
we don't know what they've put into it. We don't know what failures they've had or what successes they've had. All we see is, this shiny picture of where they are now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think we have to be really careful about that. And look, if you don't know what you don't know what you don't know, it's worth, when you hear this, figuring out, like, is this something that I care enough about, either my career or how I deliver my service, to, you know, to look at what it takes to build a sustainable business.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, a sustainable business is when you love rolling around in, you wake up every day. Well, maybe not every day, but you wake up going, ooh, this is great. I get to do this. And you don't feel like that if you're doing a thing where you're not making enough money, because it's like, oh, I got to do this. And,
Right.
meantime, I'm scraping by, and like, how is this ever going to change or be different? And I think that's a question people ask themselves, and they don't know that learning how to be a business person and learning some business skills is actually what bridges that gap.
So give me some reasons why it's actually fun to run a business. And because in the model of the bespoke, it took me a long time to understand what that word meant. It's very British and it means custom here in the US. But why running a custom bespoke photography business that, yeah, okay, I just tangled myself up in a knot. Most people who have custom portrait businesses spend maybe 5% of the time photographing and then too much time editing, and the rest is the business part. So, how come you think that's fun? How can we make it fun or realize it's fun?
Oh, that's such a great question. Well, I think of it as the experience you're delivering,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and you get to deliver a really meaningful experience. I mean, photography is pretty personal and intimate. I mean, right? Isn't
Mm-hmm.
it? I mean, you're really getting into into somebody's world. And so like what do you, if you're someone who would like people to feel really excited about working with you and feel really well taken care of, um, and you want to deliver an experience that's, and when I say experience, like I don't mean like even like the day of the shoot.
Mhm.
I mean the whole experience where somebody feels like, oh, I've got somebody who really understands me. They're gonna work as hard as they can to deliver what I want. They have a way of doing it. So it becomes fun because there's less of a heavy lift because
Mhm.
you have processes in place. You're not reinventing things every time and you're not second guessing, right? Because when people come to you and say, oh, well, could I get this or that? And you don't know, like, is that appropriate? Should I have agreed to that? Is that scope creep? Is that a different project? You really don't understand sort of what you're running on the business side because it's like there's always an exchange of value, right? I'm giving you money, you're giving me something, and that something can look very different depending on who's delivering it, right? So it might be the like, great, we get in, we get out, but it might be like, let's say like an exploration of what I'm actually trying to achieve and me leading you through how that, how that can happen, what that can look like. And I don't know, I think when you have happy clients and people are paying you well and you're feeling really good about the work and there's no ambiguity or weird questions, you feel good.
Mhm.
You said earlier, we were talking about like the journey or the creativity, and it's kind of cliche, but I like to say that growing a business is the best personal development program you'll ever take or that
Yeah.
you'll be paid to take.
Mhm.
But like it grows who you are as a person and how you move in the world and how you relate to people and how you become not just a freelancer who does a gig here and there, but like an actual business person who has standards and makes decisions about what you want and who you want to serve and how you want to serve them. And that may not be for everyone, but I think it's the thing that puts you in the driver's seat and lets you make the decisions. Like whose problems do you want to solve? Who do you want to work with? Who do what's going to make you happy rather than like, great, whatever knocks on the door is whatever we're doing, this week or next month.
So I love that we're on the same page, because people that have listened to my show regularly will know that I always say what's so great and exciting about being an entrepreneur is that all of those issues that we have are going to come up in our face, and we have the opportunity to become our best selves by handling those, and also things we didn't even know that we needed to learn. Like for me, one of the things is getting myself way too wound up in like somebody like trying to get a refund or something when they don't deserve it. And I've learned that sometimes, just like with dating bad boyfriends or marrying them, that it's good to just let people go, even though it doesn't feel fair to me. That's one small thing. So, is there something big or small that you've learned from being a business person that has impacted your personal life as well?
Yeah, so many things. I mean, if I yes, so there's so
Like,
many things. And I think
like
a
what?
lot of it is like relationships, like how you think about how you relate to people and what they want and what they're trying to get out of a situation or what they want from a situation, and a lot about communication.
Hmm.
In my earlier business days, I was not very direct. I didn't know who was right or who was wrong or what I could bring up or how. And over the years, I've learned, like just how muddled communication often is if you're not very crystal clear and very direct. And I feel like that's helped me in my coaching too, is being able to, be kind but be clear.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that just serves you really well, just in general, moving in the world. Um, and I think also, we were talking about the idea that business is creative and it's fun. I think the other part of that is like you get to invent stuff,
Hmm.
right? You sort of get to make stuff up and test it out. Like you said, sales is your superpower. And I'm sure you have lots of ways to do it. And I'm sure you're super creative about it. Like you look at the problem and you go, ooh, how would we solve this? And you figure out how to make those connections, right? And that's really satisfying. Like to
Yes.
do, to do what you're good at and to help other people with it. I just think, I don't know. There's just something deeply satisfying if you're wired that way, and that's the kind of person that you are. I think it's something really deeply satisfying about delivering something that people love and feel
Mhm.
really good about, excited about, and they want to talk about you to their friends because it was just so amazing. And amazing doesn't mean like it was bedazzling and like over the top. It means you took really good care of them. It means they
Right.
felt seen. It means they were communicated with in a way that made them understand what was happening and they knew what to expect. Um, so anyway, that's impacted me personally because I feel like I've gotten better. I've become a better people person, which just makes me better in in my personal life and my family life and being able
Mhm.
to. Plus, I'm happy. I like what I do, so I'm happy, which I think makes you which makes you a better and easier person to be around or more fun anyway.
Definitely. Two things
Yeah.
that I love about being in business, in photography especially, is the relationships that I build, that many of them last a long, long time. I just got a call from someone that it's maybe been 12 years or so since we photographed her, and my collective we, all my personalities photographed she and her husband, and they didn't realize when I created the photography that he had terminal cancer, that like he was gone a week after they saw the photographs. And so then I did the memorial and we became friends, and she just called last week to say, I want to celebrate my 80th birthday with a portrait of me. And we had just the best conversations about our lives. And that's one of the things I value. And the other, which in my industry, Amy, doing sales in person is one of the things that I'm like the big champion of. And it's the joy that I that I see and experience when people see my work. And they sit down, I use a projector so they see them large, and they laugh and they cry and they hug me. And then very often, years later, they get back to me and say, this is the best investment we've made in the whole time since we first met you. So those are my two big joys, is knowing I've created something that is a family treasure, and that relationship and that connection I build. So I love that you said that, because my first thought when I asked you about, what's the joy of being in business, I was thinking more hardscape, and you got me thinking about the softscape of it all.
Yeah, and like for me, that's because you delivered an experience for
Mm-hmm.
them, right? I mean, you show up live like that, and like, I mean, you have to really care to do that. You have to be passionate about what you do, and right, and that comes across, and that's part of being taken care of. Especially, I mean, I think especially in photography because it is so personal, right? I mean, some of the other things don't require that. They don't require. Although it's funny because even in when I work with web designers or copywriters, the version of that is like show up. Don't just send an email. Show up live in a Zoom meeting and present what you want to show them in a deck where you explain what and why. And that's where people start to feel like, oh, this is a pro and I'm really well taken care of. And
Right,
that's part of this whole experience that we've been discussing.
right. I It's probably going to be published before this conversation, so it's something you might have been able to listen to. But I am shopping for a new purse, and I don't care about brand names, and I'm very picky, and it needs to be functional and lightweight. And so I've spent way too much time obsessing about finding the right purse. And and also I can afford, like, I'm not going to spend $5,000 on a purse, but I can afford what would be considered luxury. And if that's the right thing for me, I'll go for it. And so I'm going to be sharing, or have shared, about discovering that there's a Chanel purse that might be the perfect one. And between Nordstrom, Macy's, and then this beautiful Chanel store, how different each one of those experiences was. And now I'm kind of obsessed with, do we need to go back and look at it again? And like, and of course, you may not be surprised that walking into that Chanel store that just sells Chanel and not even everything, what that luxury experience was like, and why suddenly the number became less important, the price.
I love this. I love this. I have a great sort of parallel story. Can I share?
Yeah, I loved it.
Um, I was hiring, this was a couple of years ago. I wanted to hire someone to help me with marketing, but I had a budget and I really wanted to know what the price was. It's like, okay, well, what are you going to charge me? We just let me present, let me show you what I want to do. And I'm like, okay, but I really don't want to waste your time and I don't want to waste my time. And can you give me a ballpark? And he's like, would you, this is what we went back and forth like this probably 3 times. And his request was, would you give me the time and let me present this to you? That's really important to me. And of course I said yes, caveated, my budget and all of these things.
Mhm.
We get about halfway through this presentation, which was about 45 minutes long. And halfway through, I distinctly know the moment when I switched from what's this going to cost me to I hope I can afford it.
Yes. Yep.
I wanted it. I wanted it. I wanted, like, what he was showing me. He got me. He understood what I wanted. He understood. No one had shown me that. Everyone had all these abstract ideas and maybe you could apply them this way. He had taken the time to look at my business, think about what I wanted. And just like you said, it wasn't about the price anymore, right? You had this amazing experience and you found what you were looking for, and it was the solution to your problem. And you could have looked from the outside and thought, oh, well, like, how can I get her this most functional thing for the lowest price? That's not what you were after
I started at
at
that.
all.
I started with, oh, maybe I'll order 4 purses on Amazon and I can return whatever I don't like. And, and when I'm shopping for something, I find it kind of creative and fun. So I don't mind, it's entertainment for me. But yeah. And then at that certain point, and probably that same purse is at Nordstrom and Macy's, but the the service that I got, the way that she listened, and she showed me something I really wouldn't have thought was what I was looking for, until she put it in my hand and she showed me all these things and how they work, and and such. So yeah, so if you haven't listened to that one, darling listener, go back to a couple of weeks ago and find the thing that says whatever the title is, luxury or Chanel, something. Um, I I have I used to have the story about buying a high-end bed, but now I've got a new one, so the
But
luxury, it's all the
sorry,
same. Go ahead.
but it's such a good corollary to you going selling in person, right?
Absolutely.
Like, I imagine when you're sitting there in their house and you've got the projector and you're showing things and discussing things, like, I would just imagine people would feel really excited and like, oh, this isn't what I expected. This is such a like inclusive, comprehensive experience. And I get to like see what Lucy does and who she is and how she does it. And I don't know, that just feels like the same thing. Because they like you're Chanel, or Macy's great. It costs cost X. See you on Saturday,
Mhm.
right? And that has its purpose, but you don't you feel like a commodity. You don't feel at all special,
Right, right.
you know,
And I've run
right? And
into, like, in different, what are we trying to say? every now and then in an unexpected place, I've met just an amazing salesperson. It might be a donut shop, or it might be Macy's or wherever. And I've said, if I needed someone to work for me, I would hire you in a minute and I would pay you really well. So, some people provide that, but it's not the business model. Macy's now has almost no people on the floor other than the cosmetics. Those people are, selling the experience a lot. And I don't know if they're on commission or it's just the product level, but yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think they're actually employed by the manufacturer of the product is
Ah,
why,
yeah,
right? And so, right.
yes,
Not make these because they have a whole different the whole different no service model, which works for them with their margins, I guess.
right,
But yeah, it's
right.
a different experience though.
And so, like, you've got your background in business from your family. My mom sold jewelry at J.C. Penney's, and she was the top salesperson because she does all the things. So even in a very non high-end luxury place, she put all of those experience, all that expert stuff and all that relationship stuff into her selling jewelry. And even years later, the manager that was still there at Penny's when she moved away would tell the new employees about mom and what she did. So, yeah, I came by it honestly too, like you. Love that.
And it's funny because there's some people who are just exceptional that way, right? Like they're really good at what they do, and like you can't help but feel like they really care,
Hmm.
and they're trying to solve a problem in that moment, whatever that problem is, however big or small, right? I mean,
Right.
it could be finding the right makeup, or it could be the marketing person who's going to like launch the next phase of your business, or the photographer who's really going to like see you and get your essence, or or get something that you don't even know is there, right?
Right.
Because they're skilled and because they see you.
Hmm. I love that so many times when I'm having these lovely chats, it just keeps coming back to relationship, 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 and being of service. And, it's not just photographers that know this stuff. We learned it from others like you. So, yeah. Um, okay. So maybe we've already covered this, but I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to explain what you mean by it's not them, it's you, and why we might be our own worst enemies.
Well, it's a couple of things, and I think it's it kind of ties together what we've been talking about, because it's the not wanting to embrace this or not wanting to be a business person. And I think I think sales has a certain stigma, and business maybe has a certain stigma. And I think there's an idea that we're trying to get somebody to do something,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it's a manipulative process rather than an educational process. And so I think we sometimes shortchange ourselves by being aware that there are some things that we could learn or we could do, but they're like, we kind of see them maybe as beneath us, or maybe you could potentially even see yourself as like sort of selling out, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm an artist and I'm a creative, and like the business, the money is like, and it's uncomfortable too, right? We live in a society where talking about money isn't necessarily comfortable, and now you're this creative person and you're doing it because of the passion. So I think it's that. I think we can be our own worst enemies in a way, because look, if you want to do this, it's like like you got to look in the mirror at some point and know that, like, if you want to make money, you're going to have to sell a thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're going to have to you're going to have to make that connection, and you can either do it poorly or you can do it well. And if you like, why wouldn't you want to excel at every aspect of what you're delivering? So I think that's it. I think that we can sometimes shoot ourselves in the foot with our own stereotypes or our own like really entrenched beliefs that well, I don't want to be a salesperson because I don't want to manipulate or convince. And it's like, no, 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 it's not about that. It's about, it's really about asking questions and finding out, what problem they have and what solutions you have and if they're a match,
Right.
and
Right.
knowing what problems you want to solve. When I
Mm-hmm.
say problems, I mean, if someone
Right.
comes to you and they need a photographer, their problem is they don't have one, and they've got an event or they have something they want to capture. And so, there's all these different experiences that can happen inside of that. But if you want to be chosen and you want to deliver an amazing experience, then you owe it to yourself to, to be more than the the freelancer slash creative.
Yeah. And actually, the reasons people come to find a photographer, there are problems that are not related to the photography that I help my coaching clients explore and learn how to communicate that in a way that people go, oh, yeah. Like my mom had fear of putting nail holes in the wall and decorating. She was not a visual person. And so if I was working with her, I, as not my mom, I would be helping her understand that I'm going to help her design art and I can help her figure out exactly where to put it. We're going to plan it so that the colors go with her home, with her taste, that communicate something about the family, something that will be beautiful, that people admire when they come in to her home. And so the problem is something you wouldn't think about that I solve. And so then she would be like, oh, yeah. And that's why I don't want someone just to give me digital files. My mom would never have had the three big portraits of she and my dad that when he developed dementia and would pack a bag with the sundowner syndrome, she would be like, honey, this is your home. See these portraits? And when people came into the home, they saw these beautiful portraits of them in the redwoods that I photographed them like they were newlyweds. And, so there are, for people that are listening, there are problems that we can discover the whys. And again, back to what you're sharing, Amy, is we need to spend the time with them. We need to get to know them and we need to understand our place in this business that can solve the problem. Have you heard of the work story model for websites and things? So check that out because it's very in that line is first you start with what is the problem and then you communicate and you may ask, hey, are you afraid of decorating? Well, hey, I can help. Or you might just say, one of my goals is to design portraits and help you know just exactly where they should go and how to frame them so that they become works of art and something you're proud of. So people, sometimes you can be specific and sometimes you can just say the answer without implying what the question is. So yeah, everybody out there, check out the work story model for websites and such.
I
Oh,
love what you're saying, because I just want to say, it's like, it's just so interesting, because as you're talking, I'm just thinking of like all the things that could be problems for
mhm.
people in hiring a photographer. And the thing, because I mean, because it's so personal, there's a lot of things you could be afraid of. And I hadn't even thought to like the finished product, right? Like,
Mhm.
how do you handle it? Like, and maybe people aren't even digitally savvy and they feel like,
Most
I
people are
don't know, like, right, like, what are you going to give me and what would I do with it? And like, and that's what, I said the thing about like shepherding people through an experience, like you're
right,
saying things that maybe they know they're thinking, but maybe they don't. Right.
right.
But it's like, oh, it's so reassuring. Oh, okay, you're going to do that for me. Oh, okay. I don't like, there's really nothing I have to do. And I can imagine that would extend to like, like how am I going to look and what do I wear and where should I be? And how do I project this thing that I want, whether it's personal or for a business or, I hadn't, yeah, I hadn't thought about all those things. You got my wheels turning. Really interesting.
Good.
Like what the problem solution idea here. It's huge. There's so much opportunity.
Yes. And especially with photography, when it's personal, people have these fears that they like, I'm afraid I'm going to look old and fat. And certain photographers know how to pose people really well and get the, like, I can smile really nicely, but don't ask me to hold it for 3 seconds because then my cheeks start twitching. Catch it when I'm like, we talked about your beautiful executive portrait that captures the essence of you. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, I'm so excited to get to have a conversation with Amy. Is they caught you at a moment when those 50 muscles in your face communicated a feeling and a wise, comfortable, attractive, nice, uh, professional human that people would love to hang out with, hire, have as a coach, all the things. So, that's that's what we do.
Yeah, and see, this is like, so me as a non-photographer, and you're talking about all these things, and I'm thinking like, oh, that would be so interesting to me in hiring someone to have them say all those things. Like I don't even know that there's 50 muscles in the face, or what, what combination gives off what essence, right? And nobody asked me. I mean, you could ask me, what kind of vibe do you want to give off, or how do you want to be seen? And then, right, I mean, that's just
No,
huge.
I just would say I don't want to look fat or old, but there's so much more. I can look great in a photograph and I can look like in a way that I really don't want anybody to see that. And it's up to the photographer. It's hard to do a self-portrait because it's hard to know those angles, the lighting, all the things that bring out the best and kind of our true self in this two-dimensional thing. If you want to look up Megan DiPiero, she has an amazing website. I mean, she's amazing in general, and people that listen probably know who she is. But she had a work story website done. And basically, she's got all these like short sentences. You're going to look your best. We're going to do it all for you. Like it's really well thought out that people, she does a lot of women, she does executives, she does families, mostly studio. And so she addresses those things that people wouldn't say to a photographer necessarily. Every now and then I would get people saying, I don't like myself in pictures. And so then I get to find out what it is, look at pictures they don't like, explain to them the different sides of their faces and how, like, for me, my best angle is this way, not this way. This is the bigger side of my face. This is the shorter side of my face. All that goes into just what you've been sharing, which is the relationship and becoming that trusted expert or advisor and building the confidence. And then how much would you pay? People are paying thousands and thousands for branding photographers who can do that, can communicate through the visual medium who someone is and or how they want to be perceived. So fun to talk to a non-professional photographer and kind of be able to have you be like, bing, bing, bing. That's news.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool to hear about. And I'm thinking too, like, I mean, just that reassurance, because as you're saying that, I'm thinking that's what, like, why is it every time I see a picture of myself, I'm like, oh, geez, I thought I looked better than that.
Mhm.
I thought I looked in the mirror, I thought I looked better. Then I see the picture, I'm like, it shows my age, it shows the things I don't love about that. But if someone said to me, like, well, is that a concern for you? And let's address it. And how do we address it? And
Mhm.
here's how, like, even what you just said, like, this is the short side of my face. I'm like, what? I mean, I know we're not
You
all
can see,
symmetrical,
but
but
you
it's
can
like,
tell,
but you know
right?
these things.
When I turn my face or I turn my face, you can see how different I could look in a photograph. And some people like I studied the, art of how to light and how to photograph faces, but there's also an intuition um, that, you know, if if we were having this conversation and you were in town and you were looking for an executive slash branding portrait series, then I'd share those things with you. And that elevates me in your mind, right? It's not just about sit here, look this way. Good. Thank you. It's so much more.
It makes me trust you too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's a trust factor because you know these things, you're going to share them with me. So I'm starting to trust that you will do right by me. You will give me
Mm-hmm.
this result that I want. And also I start to see like you're unpacking all of this knowledge that, as the layperson, I have sort of this rough idea of what I want, but I don't know. I mean, you're sort of unpacking the art and science behind
Mm-hmm.
how you'll give me an end result. And so I feel like, oh, like it's obviously like you know your stuff inside out. And so I feel comforted by that. And I feel like I'm going to get an outcome that I want rather than like, you know, maybe.
Awkward. Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't love this part as I've been around now quite a while, 40 years. I'm starting occasionally to see um, obituary photographs of people that I've
Mm,
photographed. And it makes me happy that they have used my image and, that I contributed something so valuable that it's the image that they want people to remember their loved one by. And
yeah, that's so cool.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, what an honor, really, right? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, that's the beauty of my profession if you're around a long time. And yeah, I don't love the fact that these people are passing, but that I add some comfort and that every day they looked at that portrait and said like, oh yeah, like so that's that other one of the problems is we all grow and change, people move away. I told you that my niece moved to Puyallup, Washington, near you in Olympia, and I miss watching this little baby boy grow up, but I have some beautiful portraits that I took of him where I feel like I can still scoop him up and cuddle him. And, now he's 4 and he's something different. So that's another one of those problems is that life doesn't ever stand still. We're always changing. And
yeah,
yeah,
it's so true.
well,
Yeah,
oh my
I love
gosh,
it. I love this vision. Sorry, just love it.
right. I love that you love it. And I think this is a great example for the listeners of exactly what we've been talking about. Because I started sharing with you, and all of a sudden the lights are going off, and you're maybe even thinking, gosh, should I fly down to San Diego? Um, that and I'm not trying to book you or anything, but the wheels start turning when we develop that time to communicate our value, not through saying I'm really good, but through the conversations that we have and how we share with our clients what our expertise is and how we're going to manage that. So yeah. Oh, this was so much fun. So I have 2 quick questions because we're just about well, we're not out of time, but I like to have about an hour or so or less. So 2 questions. I know you have a gift slash opportunity for someone to get in your world. So what is that and how would they find it?
So the thing that I do every week is I send out a newsletter called the Breakthrough Beat, and what I have tried to do is make it very pithy and actionable, like stuff you can actually lift from there and use right away. And that's on my website at amyposner.com. It's / breakthrough beat, so BEAT, like an old news beat. Um, And then the other thing that I've done, and you and I didn't discuss this, but I spent last year taking all of the things that I've been teaching in small group coaching and one-on-one coaching and in masterminds and digitized it.
Mm,
And it's called Complete Breakthrough Freelancer, and it walks you through all of these things. Like, how do you think about who you want to serve, and how do you think about your ideal client, and how do you create like appropriate prices and all of those things and it's very like the newsletter. It's it's pithy. I mean, I like actionable stuff. I don't like ivory tower stuff. So my free content, the Breakthrough Beat, and there's really actionable, great stuff in there. I'm also on LinkedIn very frequently, and at Amy Posner /business mentor. And yeah, in my newsletter, I share, as I create like new PDFs or new freebies. I try and do that pretty regularly. But that's the only place that I share that. I don't put it on my site. I don't put it on LinkedIn. That's kind of my exclusive, get in my orbit and let me give you good stuff kind of kind of spot.
okay. So is that Complete Breakthrough Freelancer? Is that a program that people can purchase, or is that in the gift category? I wasn't clear on
No,
that.
it is. It's something you can purchase. And it takes you in a very linear fashion through everything you need to do to build out a creative freelance business.
Right.
And the cool thing, I just added access to me, because I had this frustration with courses, where you get like to a certain point, and then you're like, do I do this or that? And you can't
Mhm.
really ask the course creator, so you kind of fall off the map.
Right.
So my stopgap is now I'm running a live Ask Me Anything session every month, and people can submit
Oh,
questions during the month, get them answered. So I'm trying to make a little hybrid um, sort of setup where people can actually move through and get the thing done, because questions come up, they just do.
right, right. Oh, that's brilliant. I love it. And there's your podcast. So check that out. And Amy shared that her podcast is question driven. So like a dear Abby, send a question and they might answer that. She and her podcast partner. So thank you so much. I'm going to ask you to share. Well, am asking you if there's either something that you haven't mentioned in this conversation that you might be like, oh gosh, I wish I had told them this thing, or just a parting thought uh, to take away from today and ponder in our heart.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for asking that. I think it's this. I think it's, you've decided to make a business out of your passion for photography. And that's the hardest decision, right? Like to go out on your own and, and we all do it. We do it for a lot of different reasons. But what I want to say is, like, that's the hard piece. And since you did that and you're already doing this, like, take the time to elevate it to what you want it to be, so it really serves you. And I know that's been my message this whole time, but I think people forget, like, how amazing it is that you decided to do this, and
Mhm.
you're pursuing a business. Like, it's a huge big thing. It's the thing that, like, supposedly everyone would do if they could, and it's, the fantasy, but you've done it, and you can make it into whatever you want. You can really build a life around it. So I just encourage you to, like, consider what we're talking about today, to get the skills so that you're in the driver's seat more, and it's not up to your clients, and it's not up to some, random information you get out there, but be really deliberate about it. Because, as we're saying, and we've both been around, decades at this, it's an amazing, wonderful experience, and you owe it to yourself to make it work for you in the way that you want.
Yes.
And I'll step off my soapbox, but that's my final thought.
Yes. So what I hear is like celebrate and acknowledge yourself and then learn the skills so that you can achieve what your dreams are. And then I'd say then we get new dreams and keep moving forward. So, darling listeners, stay tuned. I'll do my quick wrap up. And Amy, thank you so much for, sorry, my computer screen just asked me a question. I got to click it off. Okay. anyway, Amy, I'm really grateful. I love that we met and we're kindred spirits, obviously, not just because we've been around a while, but because of how we love our businesses and our creativity and all that good stuff. So stay tuned, everyone. And again, thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Lucy. It's just been wonderful. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. Well, once again, I had a great conversation with a wonderful human, kindred spirit that I wish she lived in San Diego so we could spend more time together. But lucky me that I got to get to know her, and we have planned to spend some more time in connection. So let me see if I can summarize quickly. Where's my notes? Okay, so she talked about how the six-figure income is available when we match our business skills to our creative skills. She also said that doesn't have to be the ultimate goal or even the goal, but it's a place to start. And she said the secret to success in business is to develop business skills. And yes, we need to be good photographers for sure, but we need to learn how to do the things in our business that attract ideal clients and help them make their purchases. And it all comes down to what comes up over and over and over again with almost all of my guests is it's about building relationships, setting ourselves in a position where in the mind of the potential client, we're the expert, or what I always say, the highly, wait, what do I always say? It'll come back to me. You know what it is. But I've got the word expert stuck in my brain. Let's see. And she said, we got to make our clients important and make them our partners in this. And we talked about how running a business can be fun. And when we're having fun, people will love what we do. She also says that we want to provide value before they know the price, if possible, depending on what we're doing, because we discussed something that happened to her and something that happened to me, where the price became less relevant once the person selling to us, presenting what they offer, did their thing, and then we just hoped that it was in a price we can afford and was willing to pay. Let's see. And then we talked a little about it's not them, it's you. And what she said about that is that if we don't want to do the business part, then our businesses are not going to succeed. And that's about the notes that I have. So thank you so much for listening again or for the first time. Thanks for subscribing and tell your friends, because keeping this a secret, like, I don't know, don't keep it a secret. All right, that is it for now. Thank you so much, and hope your fall is unfolding beautifully or whatever season you're in when you're listening to this. Bye for now.